he has secured All India rank 64 in this UPSC 2022 exam. Okay, and as I was mentioning, he was also selected in UPPSC 2022 with DSP rank in his state PSC examinations. So I would like to felicitate him on behalf of SHUBHRA RANJAN IAS and on behalf of the students at Bhubaneswar Center. Thank you. So this is for you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And we have a small cake which we'll cut and then we'll distribute amongst ourselves. ठीक है, केक लेके आओ. आपको इसको ये हटाइएगा. Be careful. इसको जलाना भी पड़ेगा ना. ये यूपीएससी के बाद वाला हैप्पी बर्थडे है. ठीक है, वैसे वाला हैप्पी बर्थडे तो मनाते ही होंगे. हाँ, wait. You eat. लाओ. तुम्हें खाना है. हेल्थ वाइज भी तुम्ही को ज़्यादा खाना चाहिए, मेरे को नहीं. ठीक है, तो विल हैव इट लेटर ऑन. एक टिश्यू पेपर दे दीजिए. है So Anirudh would be going to his Labasana training on 30th.
Yes.
This month. 30th, हाँ, tissue day. 30th of this month. So उससे पहले when we were talking last week, we were in Mumbai and Pune. Okay, and Biplav, he requested that students wants to meet. Next week will be in Varanasi. So before he goes to his training, इनको थोड़ा बहुत एक्सरसाइज करवाना है. उसके बाद तो फिर वहाँ पे जाके अपना खा पी के मोटे हो जाएंगे. बट अभी फिलहाल इनको एक्सरसाइज कराना है इधर. इसको भी हटा दीजिए आप. डिस्ट्रीब्यूट अमंग स्टूडेंट्स आफ्टर द सेशन. Sit. Be careful. So this was the fourth attempt of Anirudh. Okay, he has done his graduation, a BTech in civil engineering from NIT Allahabad. After that, those who are from engineering background must be knowing that NIT Allahabad is a very good college, and he had the option of sitting and getting good placement. But since his goal was clear that he wanted to go into civil services only, so he did not sit for the placement, and he started preparation for the civil services. The first attempt was just given after the college examinations were over. But after that, in the next 3 attempts, he has given mains every time. I was discussing his marks in PSIR optional. This year he has 295, which is one of the highest, and of course, as I said, it is a very good marks. Now, one very sensible thing that he did, and which is recommended to all the candidates, that he was giving his state PSC examination together with UPSC. क्या होता है कि बहुत लोग सोचते हैं कि नहीं हम तो UPSC के लिए बने, हम स्टेट PSC नहीं देंगे, तो बनेंगे तो सीधा IAS बनेंगे. But this strategy is not right, and that also an examination like UPSC, which is so competitive in nature, right? So he gave, there also he qualified 3 times, and the current rank is that of a DSP rank. So somewhere that security came in कि UPSC in case नहीं होता है, then he had a very good job to fall upon. तो वो insecurity mind से चली गई. So those who are giving the state PSC examination also, he would be able to guide you better. ठीक है. Now another thing which I have realized after staying with him for some time now, that of all the toppers, I find him very honest with his opinion. Unnecessary, he will not tell you कि ये book पढ़ो, ये book पढ़ो. He will tell you and in a very detail what he has done himself, and in detail nitty gritties actually जो किया है वही बताएंगे. Otherwise what happens is that people, I don't know why they start talking about lot of those things which they have not done it. And aspirant, he is just he is idealizing that person, and if the right kind of guidance is not being given, I think that is a problem. So in that way he is very honest in his opinion. The service allocation has happened. He has got Indian Administrative Service. That was his first choice. And the cadre allocation has not happened. I think that will come after 1 or 2 months. So before he starts his session, I'll just like to give a brief on to you about the institute and bureaucracy. Who all are not with SHUBHRA, Ranjan? Is there somebody who is a new student here other than any non-SHUBHRA, Ranjan IAS student here? No. ठीक. Only test. मतलब you are connected with the institute, so that then I'll skip the introduction of the institute part. Okay. Result, you already know that we have given this year, we have 102 plus results, and these are not our interview students. These are either test series crash course student or classroom students. Last year also in top 10 we had, this year we have rank 1 also, Ishita. Last year in top 10 we had 4 people, and result was as good. So it has been good since quite many years now. Now why Pol Science, or that matter SHUBHRA Ranjan, is giving this kind of result year after year? Maybe because that comprehensiveness is there. Many of you I think must be having this conception कि हमारा बैच लंबा खिंचता है. Pol Science वाले अक्सर कंप्लेन करते हैं सर आपके क्लासेस बहुत ज़्यादा होते हैं. हमारे लिए आसान है, हम 200 क्लास में ना खत्म करके 100 क्लास में खत्म कर दें. 100 क्लास में हम एक नया बैच स्टार्ट कर लेंगे. फाइनेंशियली इट वुड बी डबलिंग अप आवर इनकम, बट समवेयर मैम इज नॉट कन्विंस विद दिस आइडिया, क्योंकि ये फाउंडेशन कोर्स है. फाउंडेशन कोर्स इज यूज फॉर मेकिंग फाउंडेशन. टेस्ट सीरीज आप हर एक अटेम्प्ट के साथ लेते हैं. So somehow that ideology of ma'am, that thinking that we will not be compromising with the quality, जो भी time ज़्यादा लगता है, because you as a student, I understand that, we all understand that your time is very important, but as time of the teacher is also very important, and it is directly connected with the finances also, but then also there has to be a balance, right? That quality को एक point से ज़्यादा we cannot even think of. Quality is prime thing, everything is secondary, and that's why year after year there has been like 100 plus selections. So out of 900, last year it was even less, some 800 seats were there. So 100 plus selections are happening. So that is happening because something fundamentally right is being done. Now bureaucracy, as all of you are going to enter in this field of bureaucracy, simply if I can tell you, underline the importance of bureaucracy. This country is being driven by bureaucracy. This whole country, India, which is one of the largest and the fastest growing economy of the world, it is being driven by bureaucracy. After 90s, of course, there has been a trend towards privatization and we have liberalized the market. But market will not take care of you. Okay, market is always driven by profit. We all went through COVID-19. Where was market? Who came in? Government came in. Who came into work? It was the government servants, police, IAS people. They came in, they worked, because some presence of state is required. Otherwise, whenever there is a crisis, private people, the market, they will go away. It is government. For last 70 years, if this country is moving ahead, and that also with a substantial rate of economic growth, and with a good kind of democracy. We often criticize our democracy also, but if you see the periphery, neighbors around India, Pakistan, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, you can imagine how good democracy, how good administration we are delivering. And this is being delivered by bureaucrats. We conduct world's largest elections year after year, right? That is world's largest. That is a zero error elections, again driven by bureaucracy only. Private players are not doing the elections. So this country is being driven by bureaucrats. And why this is being happening? Because bureaucracy somewhere is the only institution probably, or one of the institution based on meritocracy, right? People are coming through merit, unlike the political class, wherein if your dad is MLA or MP, you have high chances of becoming MLA or MP. But it's not there in the bureaucracy that if your dad is an IAS, UPSC is going to give some kind of discount to you. आपको भी same process follow करना पड़ेगा. And I personally know many people whose dad is senior IPS officer, senior IAS officer, and they are not being able to qualify because ultimately मेहनत तो बच्चे को करना है. And so hardworking people are going there, they are working hard, and therefore this country is moving. So despite all the negatives that we talk about bureaucracy, we should give its fair share of credit that this institution has done. Now I'll share with you 3 examples in a very fast manner. This example, this is a building in Telangana, Hyderabad. Telangana was in a very bad, then it was Andhra Pradesh, it was in a very bad state. It had no money to even pay to the employees. And then Chandrababu Naidu gave this task to 4 of his very able IAS officers. One of them was rank 1 of that time, Srivas Krishna. He very often writes in newspaper also. Okay, I think he's originally from Odisha only, I'm not sure. So these 4 IAS officers, they met the head of Microsoft, Bill Gates, and convinced him of coming and investing in Hyderabad. And then in this building was prepared by government as the basic infrastructure, and in the upper 2 floors, Microsoft set its first office outside Raymond, Seattle, outside USA, and that was in India. And after Microsoft, every company started coming, and you know that today Telangana is exporting 1.83 lakh crore of software. So this is the change IAS officers got. They are not some private people. Another example is of Surat. I don't know whether you are aware or not. Surat at some point of time, it was having plague. Okay, people would not go there because they would die. Then came a very able IAS officer, Ramchandra Rao. He changed the entire face of Surat so much that it was declared one of the cleanest city. Again, one IAS officer with honesty and with commitment. Of course, जो लोग select हो रहे हैं intelligent तो हैं. There's no, if some 6 lakh people are being condensed to 700, 800 people, so there's no question that these people are not intelligent. So they are utilizing that. Of course, some people would go on the negative path, but the thing is, this change again by IAS. How many of you know him? क्या नाम इनका? TN Session. TN Session. Before his tenure in Election Commission of India, Election Commission of India was not a powerful body. For every decision, it would go to the Finance Ministry, to the Law Ministry. But TN Session, he came, he was a very strong IAS officer, I believe of 74 batch, 74 or 64 batch, Tamil Nadu cadre. Now, he changed the entire face of Election Commission of India. In those days, before he came, elections in UP, from place from where he belongs, and elections in Bihar, from where I belong, used to be a very bad affair. That means there would be no elections without killing of some 20-25 people. He controlled the entire thing. Okay, and he was one person. It is said that Indian politicians are afraid only of 2 people, of God and TN Session. He would say that I eat politicians in my breakfast. ठीक है, इनका ये कहना होता था. He said that earlier when letters used to go from Election Commission office, it used to be written CEC, Government of India. I said that no, cut Government of India. I am not part of Government of India. I am a very neutral body. Election Commission is a neutral body. Like Supreme Court of India, it is a constitutional neutral body. I am not part of Government of India. Before him, election commissioners used to go and wait for half an hour, 1 hour after outside the office of law minister. He said that I am not coming here to wait. I will not wait. Law minister will have to wait for me. So a very honest IS officer, very strong IS officer. There's one incident related to him, that once he was as an IS officer in charge of the security of Rajiv Gandhi. And being a very good friend of Rajiv Gandhi just that was the day of 25th January, and a charity run was organized wherein Prime Minister would run, and whatever money would be collected through that charity run would go to some fund, right? Rajiv Gandhi, in a joke, he asked TN Session that, come fat man, you also run. Come fat man, you also run. He took it as an offense. Okay, he did not disclose then, but once 10 minutes after Rajiv Gandhi started running, 4 policemen caught Rajiv Gandhi, got him in the ambassador car, took him back home. When he asked that why, he told that TN Session instructed that there was a threat to your security. Koi threat nahi tha security ka, right? But that means that when you don't have skeleton in your cupboard, that means if you have not done anything wrong, you are not supposed to be afraid by even Prime Minister. TN Session. So today also you know that currently, if you see in this photo, Ajit Doval, IPS, Jaishankar, Foreign Service, Amitabh Kant, Indian Administrative Service. So what point I want to drive is that this country, even if every decision is happening on the name of Prime Minister, or for that matter in Odisha it is happening on the name of Chief Minister, but who is the brain behind? It is the bureaucrats who are driving the entire project. Again, I got this photo because Ananya Das, she is our student and she is currently District Magistrate of Sambalpur District. She was All India rank 16, qualified examination in the first attempt, being an engineer, and she did from non-political science. She is from non-political science background, but as a political science optional student, she qualified. Another person, he is also our student and is placed in his additional municipal corporation के जो chairman होता है, additional chairman to the municipal corporation of Bhubaneswar only. ठीक है, so he is there. Again, student Simikaran, I was talking about, she is from Odisha. Sarahor कोई district है क्या? I'm forgetting the name. नहीं, कौन? हाँ, Balasore district. She is from there. Again, an engineer qualified with political science optional. She is currently in the Meghalaya. Another student of ours from 2016 batch, Petal Gehlot. She is in Foreign Service Officer. Okay. You know Tina Dabi? उनकी batchmate है. ठीक है. So she is in Foreign Service. Now just 4 to 5 years in the service, maybe 6 years in the service, you can imagine that she is sitting with Foreign Minister. Okay. Then she is sitting and with Prime Minister of India when he is in talk with foreign delegates. Okay. She is accompanying Prime Minister when he is talking to the President of America. And recently when the President of India went there because on the funeral of Queen, so she accompanied. Okay. So the whole purpose is to tell you that what is the scope of this service. Okay. If you are thinking that you are doing hard work, no doubt that is a hard work. But the kind of opportunity that this is going to give, no service in India or for that matter, I don't know, in the world also, gives you this opportunity that in next 5 years, you will be sitting with the Prime Minister. So Anirudh is here. When he will go to his district as SDM or as DM, he will be the person who would be receiving Prime Minister if he is coming, if President is coming. So no other service, private sector, of course, it gives you more money than there. But the kind of difference that you can make, and this is just the optics, the difference that person is creating in a common man's life, that is huge. We go to the hospital, we'll find it functioning. If it is functioning, that means some IS officers at some point of time did think about it and got it implemented. There are so many tribal areas in Odisha, Chhattisgarh, wherein people have started going, children have started going to school because, or there's a security improvement there because some IPS officer has been working day and night on that. So this service will give you very satisfying tenure. Okay, so therefore all the hard work that you have started or you will be doing is completely worth. So this is where you have to reach. This is the Labasana, but the way to there goes through the building of UPSC. ये एक बीच में ब्लॉक आएगा, ठीक है. अदरवाइज इसी ब्लॉक को क्रॉस करना है. एग्जामिनेशन प्रोसेस एवरीबडी नो, प्री है, मेंस है, इंटरव्यू है. Now I'll request Anirudh to kindly tell you that how was his journey, and he will tell you in detail what sources did he follow. After that, we'll open the floor to question. Whatever you feel, please ask him. I'm telling you, he is one topper. He will answer all your query. Last time when we were in Mumbai, एक स्टूडेंट थे, उनके पिताजी आए थे, उन्होंने यहाँ तक भी पूछा कि इंटरव्यू का रूम कितना बड़ा होता है, एसी लगे होते हैं कि नहीं होते हैं, टेबल जितना था वो कितना बड़ा था, एंड ही आंसर्ड, कुछ डायमेंशन भी बताया था अनिरुद्ध ने कितना बड़ा था. सो फील फ्री, दिस इज योर डे विथ हिम. Maybe you will not get opportunity to talk to any topper in next maybe 1 year, because in Delhi many toppers keep on coming. Students there, they get benefit of that. But this is a good opportunity for you. So over to you, Anirudh, please.
Hello everyone. So I will briefly share about my journey. Sir has told most part of it. So I started, this was my 4th attempt, and I started in 2019, and I gave it every year since 2019, 20, 21 and 22. So in 19 I missed prelims, cut off by 2 marks, and then in 20 I qualified prelims, but I missed the mains cut off by 16 marks. Then in 2021 I missed the mains cutoff again by 4 marks, and this was my first interview, and I got 64th rank. So that was my journey in brief, and I have done civil engineering from NIT Allahabad. So I will directly come to prelims. We will first discuss about something about prelims. I will discuss something, and then we'll move on to mains, and then something about interview, and then you can ask the questions. All right. So firstly, when we talk about prelims, I will firstly mention my sources and how I read them, how I covered them. So I will start with that. And firstly, there is history, which is I think the biggest of all. So in history, for ancient history, I refer to R.S. Sharma, and for medieval history, I refer to Satish Chandra. And both these books are quite bulky. They are around 300 pages each. So I made short notes of them after reading it once or twice. Many people ask, when should we start making notes, in the first reading itself or after 1 or 2 readings? So I think you should not make your notes in the first reading itself, because you will find everything is important in the first reading. After 1 or 2 readings, you get an idea about the book and its content, then you should make your notes. So I did 1 or 2 reading, and I made my notes, and I converted those 300 pages into around 30 to 40 pages. So that was, and after I made those notes, I referred only to those notes. I did not refer to the parent material or book R.S. Sharma or Satish Chandra. I closed them and I never read them again. So that was how I read ancient and medieval history. After that, there is modern history, for which I refer to Spectrum. And I did not make any notes from Spectrum, because I found that the whole book is laden with facts, and there is not much use of minimizing it. Also, there is a summary at the end of every chapter in Spectrum, which I think you can use if you are in a hurry and want to revise quickly. So that was about modern history. And then there is postmodern history and world history, which is relevant only for mains. So for postmodern history, I again read the NCERT. There is one NCERT on postmodern history, and I made notes from that and converted it into again 30-35 pages. And for world history, I think there is a book by Norman Lowe. I read that, and since the syllabus for world history is quite detailed in GS1, so for every keyword which is mentioned in the syllabus, I made 2 to 3 pages of notes, and total 30-40 pages of notes for world history, because you don't have a lot of time in between pre and mains which you can give for postmodern or world history, because questions are seldom asked. So I made short notes and revised them once or twice. That was it. So that was the history part. And after history, the second thing is polity. I think Lakshmikant I read. Most of the people read Lakshmikant only. And in Lakshmikant again, I did not find it very useful to make notes out of it, because again it is entirely laden with fact. Every table is important. Questions come out of it directly. So I did not make any notes. If you think that you will benefit from making it, then you can surely go ahead and make it. I am telling what I did. So I did not make any notes from Lakshmikant, and I just tried to revise it thrice or 4 times, 5 times, as many times as I could. And because it is also relevant for those who have PSIR optional, they will know it has significant overlap with IGP section, in means section B of paper 1. So that is why Lakshmikant was very important for me, and this is how I read it. After polity, there is ecology. For ecology, I read the Shankar IS book and I made short notes out of it, again around 60-70 pages. And apart from that, especially for prelims, a lot of national parks are there, and there are biodiversity in news, and there are international organizations in news, and there is biodiversity in news, the animals or the plant species in news. So I made one-pager notes on these from yearly compilations or other current affair magazines I made, or newspaper. I made these notes. One page of national parks in news and their location, one page of biodiversity in news, one page of international events or organizations in news. Like that, I made notes and I referred to them, and they, I think, were very helpful for me. I got 2 to 3 questions directly from those 7-8 pages of notes in every pre I gave. So it helped me in clearing pre and scoring well in the ecology section in the prelims. After that, ecology, we have economy, and in economy I referred to Sri Ram IS printed material is there. I referred to that. I got it from the market, but I could not understand it a lot. So I talked to seniors and my mentors, and they suggested that you should first read a basic book, and so I referred to NCRT, macroeconomy NCRT. I think it is class 11th NCRT. I read that to understand the basics, and then I read the standard reference material. So that was my approach for economy, because economy is a little technical. Means for a layman it is difficult to understand the economics portion. So I would suggest that if you find any difficulty, then you should first read NCRT. If you do not understand even 11th class macroeconomy, then you should go to 9th and 10th class economy NCRT, so that you have a good foundation. And that was about the economy. And I think there is art and culture. For art and culture, I read 11th class fine arts NCRT, and apart from I read that thoroughly, and I did selective reading of Nitin Singhania. Like the first few chapters are very important. The first chapter is the most important one, on architecture, I think. So that I read in detail, and apart from that, means selective reading, such as the chapter on, I think there is dance forms and literature is there. So questions are asked from paintings is there. So questions are asked from those areas in prelims especially. So I read them selectively. Apart from that, I did not read the later chapters of Nitin Singhania. And there is geography. For geography, I read only 11th and 12th class NCRTs. Apart from that, I read nothing. The new NCRTs of class 11th and class 12th. That was my only material. For mains, I made some additional notes, which we will talk about when we discuss mains. So that was about geography, and I think science and technology is left. So for science and technology, I referred to only the NCRTs again, class 6 to class 10th NCRT. And apart from that, if you go through the previous year questions of prelims, you will realize that there are a lot of areas, means there are some areas from which a lot of questions are asked. Like the space launches are there of ISRO or other NASA or other bodies, and there is biotechnology, gene editing, and DNA fingerprinting, and other such technologies, from which questions are asked every year, almost every year. mtDNA has been in the fashion for last 2-3 years. So from these areas, you can make one-pager notes. As I said, in ecology, I made for international organizations or biodiversity or national parks in use. Similarly, for science and tech also, I made one-pager notes for topics which are frequently asked in the PYQs. If you look at the PYQs, you get an idea that what are the areas from which a lot of questions are coming repeatedly. So you can make one-pager notes on them. It will help a lot. So that was about my source list for prelims. And after source list, this was for the static portion, right? After static, there is the current affairs section in prelims, which haunted me a lot and haunts many people I know, or means most of the aspirants. So in current affairs, there were mainly two sources I used. First was the newspaper. I read it daily for 1.5 hours, around 1.5 hours to 2 hours sometimes. And after newspaper reading, see, I think newspaper is important because it helps you in building a chain of events, in understanding what is going on, and in your subconscious mind it gets feeded that how things are progressing and how it is the events are happening. So when in prelims you see a question related to current affairs, it will help you in elimination. Even though you do not realize it while reading it, you might think that after reading, I got that feeling many times. I read the newspaper for 1.5 hours, I keep it aside, and then I think what I read, and there is nothing in the mind. So, so that happens, but in your subconscious mind, it is getting feeded, and it will help you in elimination when the exam day comes. So that is why I think newspaper is important. And after newspaper, see, as I said, you don't remember what you read even one day after you read the newspaper. So you need to revise those things. And the best way to revise them is not to reread the newspaper again and again, but to refer to a monthly magazine or an yearly compilation. For that, I could not refer to monthly magazine because I was in the prelims and mains exam cycle for last 3 years. So I refer to the yearly compilations. And in those yearly compilations, I would revise. Even when I read that yearly compilation for the first time, I would be familiar with most of the topics because I had read the newspaper earlier, and it is basically a summary of the newspapers. So you will be very familiar, and I would suggest, if you have time and you are not trapped in the pre-main cycle, to read the monthly magazine, because it will not lead to a pile up towards the end of the exam. If you are reading PT 365 at the end of the exam, then in 2 months you have to cover 1 year current affairs. The better approach is to read every month, a monthly compilation. So that would be more suitable, I think, and that is about how to cover current affairs. And I would like to stress here that don't think that you need to mug up the current affairs, because no question would be asked where you have to write an answer in prelims. You just need to know the basics, like, so that when there is a question of current affairs, you can eliminate the option to arrive at the right answer. So don't feel very nervous. I have seen people leave the exam because they were not confident about current affairs. So don't be so much stressed out on current affairs. That is my opinion. I also handled it with a light touch, very light touch. I did not stress too much on current affairs. So that was about current affairs. And then the third thing, which I think is very important in prelims preparation, is tests. And one of the questions is how many tests to give, and another question is there a relation? So I have seen people who give 100 tests and they fail to qualify the exam, and I have seen people who give 5 tests and they clear the exam. So there is no direct correlation, as far as my opinion is concerned, between the number of tests you give and the result you derive. It depends more on what you extract from every test you give. That, in my opinion, is more important. So firstly, personally, I used to give around 30 to 40 tests before every prelims. And I used to give only full length test. I did not give any part tests because I had completed the syllabus a while back, and I was basically giving the prelims and mains again and again. So I was not giving any part length tests, only full length tests, and I gave 30 to 40 tests. And in those tests, what I tried to do, how I did the analysis, because it is not how many tests you give, but how you analyze those tests and do you revise those tests or not. So the benefit from test depends a lot on these aspects. So once I gave a test, I would try to analyze it for around 3 to 4 hours. And in that time period, I would focus on two things. The first thing is to hone my skills of elimination, means to improve elimination. That was my first focus, and my second focus was to improve my static base. So these are the two things. Firstly, I would like to ask how many of you are giving mains this time, means the mains. So okay, so that is fine, means you will be giving prelims, right? I wanted to just confirm that people would be giving prelims. So that was what I was talking about, tests, and how I try to focus on two things while giving tests. One is to improve elimination, and second is to improve my knowledge base, static knowledge base. To improve elimination, I used to focus, means I made a notebook, and in that notebook I would firstly, whenever I give a test, I would see what are the questions that were wrong, and in those questions I would see how many options I had eliminated. Say I had eliminated 2 options and I was confused between 2, and that question went wrong. So I would try to think that what was my thought process which led me towards the wrong answer, and how I could have improved, means gone in the right direction, where I made the wrong decision basically. And I would write it down in my notebook that okay, this was the lapse in my thinking process. And similarly, if there are, I had doubt in 2 or 3 options, and then that question I marked correctly. So I would also write the thought process in my notebook that okay, this is the correct line of thinking, I made the right approach in this, and I need to progress like this in other questions also. So this is not, means 100% scientific rule. It's not like if you will make a notebook like this, you will get all the questions correct. And I also never got all the questions correct, but it will help you, means make a better decision in 5 to 10 questions out of 100, and that makes all the difference in prelims, because it is very easy to get near the cutoff, but it is quite difficult to cross it. So these little things can help you cross that cutoff. This is my opinion. And second thing, as I said, from that I used to do from tests was to improve my static base. To improve my static base, what I tried to do is that once I gave a test, there would be around 30 to 40 questions of which I had no idea. I had read those things for the first time. And so I would make one liner notes, so that when I have to revise that test, I do not need to open the whole test again, only the bits that I did not know. So for that, I would make one liner notes of every question that I did not know. So that would be around 30 to 40 lines from one test. And when I give 30 tests, that is around 1000 lines of one liner notes. And out of those 1000 lines, I think there is a high chance that 5 to 10 questions would come. So that would help you a lot. Means these are the small tweaks that you can make, which will maybe help you get 5-10 questions extra correct. And that means 10 questions is 20 marks, right? Most people miss the cutoff by less than 20 marks. So this was how I approached my test, how I analyzed my test. And once I made those notes of around 1000 points, as I said, I would try to revise them twice or thrice, so that means just making those notes will not lead to means you retaining them. You need to revise them twice or thrice so that you retain those notes. So that was my basic approach and basic things about tests. And so I have talked about current affairs and static and tests. And one more thing is the PYQ. I think PYQs are also very important. And if you look at the last few years question, only 5 years, and you pick up this year's paper, and after reading the 5 years PYQ, and then you go through this year's paper, you find that at least 5 to 10 questions are there which are indirectly, I'm not saying any direct question would come from previous years, but they would be indirectly linked to the questions or the options in the previous year papers. So that is why previous year papers would again help you get those 2-3 questions extra. I would recommend that you go be very thorough with last 5 years PYQs, and if time permits till 2013 when the pattern changed. So if you read PYQs from 2013 to 23, I believe that you will get at least 5 to 10 marks extra in your real exam when you attempt in 2024. 24 it will be, right? So yes. So that was PYQ, and then there is CSAT. CSAT is becoming more and more difficult, and even for me, I scored 70 marks in my CSAT exam last year. I barely passed the cutoff, so I would suggest that don't take it lightly.
And he was an engineer.
Yes, yes. And despite being an civil engineer, that to civil engineer, so I could not had very difficulty in clearing CSAT, and this year's paper was also tougher than last year. So I think that if I gave this year, I would not qualify. I had not even studied a lot of CSAT, so that is why I would suggest that don't take it lightly. Firstly, go through last 2-3 years papers, because the paper had become more tough in the last 2-3 years. Before that, it was quite easy. So go through the PYQs, and if you are not scoring around 60 or 70 marks, then you need to work on it. Maybe join a crash course, or maybe join few test series, but do a lot of practice, because practice is the only solution to CSAT, especially the reasoning portion. You will only master it through practice. Solve more and more questions after getting the concepts right, and that is the only way for CSAT. So that was in brief, very brief, my strategy for prelims. And now I would discuss about my main strategy. Firstly, I would talk a bit about answer writing and its basic structure, the basic structure for answer writing that I used. And then we can talk about note making and the sources, if you want, about all the portions of the syllabus. So for answer writing, I am talking about the GS, especially GS paper 1, 2 and 3. Ethics is a bit different, and we can address it separately. But for GS 1, 2 and 3 papers, my structure of answer was very well defined. I had made it very mechanical, that I would start with an introduction, and after introduction in 2-3 lines, if it is a 10 marker question, then there would be 2 subheadings or mostly, and if the question is itself very detailed, then maybe 3 subheadings, but I would prefer 2 subheadings, and in every subheading I would try to write at least 5 points. So it is like 10 points. I am making 2 subheadings and writing 5 points in every subheading. So that is 10 points for a 10 marker. Introduction, subheading 1, 5 points, subheading 2, 5 points, and then conclusion. That was my basic pattern for answer writing in 10 marker. In 15 marker, it would be intro, maybe 4 or 5 lines, 1 line extra, and then subheading 1, 5 points, subheading 2, 5 points, subheading 3, 5 points, and then conclusion. So like that, 15 points in a 15 marker. That was the basic template that I tried to follow in my answers. And then to make your answers more appealing, there are certain tweaks that you can make which will help you. One is the use of diagrams. And in my first few attempts, I did not use a lot of diagrams, but I saw a lot of topper copies, and I reflected where I am lacking in my attempt, in my efforts, because I was missing mains. I missed it twice. So I found that one of the things was, my presentation was not very good. It was bad basically. So my presentation was bad. So to improve it, my handwriting is also bad. So I cannot improve my handwriting. So I decided that I need to draw diagrams, and I need to give a lot of spaces so that it is at least legible. And then the handwriting part I could not improve much, but I tried to make a lot of diagrams. And if it is a geography question, then surely you need to make a map or a figure showing geographical concepts. So that will help you improve marks. And when you are making diagrams, there are 2-3 basic templates you can follow. Like there is the star pattern, where you make one big circle which explains a central concept. Say, for example, if it is good governance, Then you make a central circle and then you make 5-6 circles around it and write various features of good governance. That can be one approach. Or you can show cycles like virtuous cycle. If you see economic survey makes use of such various such diagrams which can actually be used in the real exam after certain tweaks. Like it would show the virtuous cycle. The exam means the idea for showing virtuous cycles I got from the economic survey, where it will start with one thing, say economic growth, it will lead to more investment, more employment and more expenditure, and that will further lead to economic growth. That means something on this line was shown in the economic survey. So I took that idea and I replicated it and made various such virtuous cycles or vicious cycles, even how poverty will lead to lack of human resources, which will lead to low income, which will again lead to poverty. So like that you can decide certain templates of making diagrams, virtuous cycle, vicious cycle, star pattern. And if you go through toppers copies, that is actually a very good source. You can see how they are making their diagrams and you can copy the style, not the diagram itself, but you can copy the style. Okay, I can make diagrams like that. If you go through 5-10 topper copies, you will get a lot of idea how you can make diagrams to improve your presentation. So that was one thing that I did to improve my presentation in answer writing. And then there is ethics paper. In ethics paper, as I discussed, this was my answer writing pattern for GS 123. Ethics is a little different because the questions there are not as exact or as objective as they are in GS 123. The questions are more abstract and they depend upon your interpretation. And then there are those 13 questions and then 6 are case studies, which are altogether different. So I'm talking about the first 13 questions, the theory part of ethics, in which my pattern was a bit different. It was basically one introduction. In introduction, I tried to use a quote, and for that I had made a list of quotes based on the keywords mentioned in the syllabus. Say integrity is there in syllabus, so I had 2 quotes on integrity. There is probity in governance in the syllabus, so I had 2 quotes on probity in governance. Similarly, impartiality, attitude, aptitude, emotional intelligence. You can have 2 quotes on each of these, and you can get these through Google searches, or there are topper notes. I referred to Surbhi Goyal ma'am's notes. She had made notes like that only. She is All India rank 78, I think, in 2021. So I referred to her notes. I got ready-made content on notes, and I used that a lot. Actually in my real exam, I scored decent marks, 116 marks I got in ethics, and I used 1 quote in introduction and 1 quote in conclusion of all my 13 answers. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that in my pattern for writing an ethics answer, the introduction would include one definition of the key concept that has been asked in the question. Say the question is talking about integrity or transparency. Then firstly I would define transparency, then write a quote on transparency, then move on to subheading 1. And in subheading 1, I would write only 3 points, but every point would be substantiated with an example. That example can be from the works of bureaucrats, or from the world of sports, or from the lives of great leaders, or from my own everyday daily life. And to be able to quote these examples in such a short and limited amount of time, you need to make separate notes of the examples. This is my opinion, that you should make notes of examples separately. I also made those notes, like ethics in daily life. What are the ethical actions that I am doing in my daily life? I try to think and then write them down. Similarly, ethical examples in the world of sports, unethical examples in the world of sports, ethical examples of good work done by IAS or IPS officers. So like that, I made a note of examples, say 4-5 pages, and I used them thoroughly in my answer writing. So that was the basic pattern of answer writing for ethics theory section. And in case study, again, I made some notes for the themes, because the themes are repeated every year. If you will go through the PYQs, you will be able to identify the themes. There are around 10 to 15 themes. Say, for example, one of the themes is there are peaceful protests, but they can turn violent. What will you do? How will you handle the situation? You are IPS. So like that, there are some themes. I made notes on those themes. And those notes were basically in the format that what are the ethical issues that are being faced in the situation and what can be the course of action that can be taken. Say if there is sexual harassment at workplace, that is also one of the themes in PYQs. So for that, what are the ethical issues involved and what can be the course of action? Like that, if you make notes, then it will be very easy to write them when the actual paper comes, because ethics is the lengthiest of all the papers, including optional essay and GS. So to complete that paper itself is a very big challenge, and to complete it with quality, if you can do that, you will get around 115 120 marks. There is no doubt, even more but not less. So to means if you try to inculcate some quality, you need to do these small steps like making notes of examples, making a list of quotes, and then trying to incorporate them into your answers. And one more thing I would suggest in ethics is to incorporate ethical terminology in your answers, because that will help a lot. Like when there is a question, say there is a quote, and that quote which is here, be the change that you want to see in the world. If that there are ethics, means such type of questions come where there is just a quote and what it means to you. If that quote comes, then you can write about it in a generic terms. But a better approach would be that if you can use some ethical terminology while answering this question. Say if this is be the change that you want to see in the world, then you can link this change to say persuasion or attitude change. If you can do those things in your answer, then your answer would look better. You will get half a mark extra. So that is basically linking the whatever is in the question with the core concepts of ethics that you have read. If you can establish those interlinkages, then you will get more marks. So that is about the ethics section. And then there is essay and optional. Optional, how many of you have PSIR? Well, a lot of people have PSIR, so I can discuss it in a bit detail. Firstly, I will discuss essay, and I will not discuss essay in a lot of detail because I do not have a good score in essay. I had only 116, which is above average score, but it is not a good score. So, but what I did for essay is that I tried to write a multi-dimensional essay. Firstly, and like GS answers, I had a mechanical format here as well. Like in the first page, I would write the introduction, 1 to 1.5 pages. And then in 4 pages or 5 pages, I would explain the core theme. Nowadays, philosophical essays are being asked, right? So whatever the philosophical essay has been asked, I would try to prove it across various dimensions: social, political, economic, ecological, security, technological. In those points, in those dimensions, I would try to prove that ethic means philosophical quote with the help of examples. Because if you do not use examples in your essay, then your essay would look like, means it will be boring and monotonous. So to break the monotony, you can use daily life examples or good anecdotes to prove your points across these dimensions. So that will make the essay interesting. And after proving the essay across various dimensions in 4 to 5 pages, I would move on to list the challenges in implementing that statement. That would be 1 to 2 page. And after that, I would move on to writing the solutions, means the way forward, basically how we can implement that philosophical statement in daily life or in the actual world. So that would be 1 to 2 page, and then it would be followed by a conclusion in half page or 1 page, in which I would try to refer back to the introduction so that there is a sense of completion as well. So that was my basic approach for essay. I made one structure and the key, and I tried to implement it in both my essays. And the key was that the main USP, what they say, unique selling point, was that I tried to prove it across various dimensions with the help of examples. That was basic, and it got me above average marks, not means excellent marks. So that was my strategy for essay, how I wrote my essays. And after SS there is PSIR, since there are means 70% people are from PSIR, I think. So I can discuss it in a little bit detail. And for PSIR, I would firstly tell my sources. The main source means the primary material was SHUBHRA ma'am's notes. I was a postal correspondence student, so I got 7 books, notebooks, right? And I read them 3 or 4 times. After reading them 3 or 4 times, I made my own notes from them. And then after making my notes from SHUBHRA ma'am's notes, I gave, means in between that 3-4 readings and making notes, I had given 2 mains. And in those 2 mains, in my first mains I got 260 marks, and in my second mains the marks reduced to 243. And when my marks reduced from 260 to 243, I started to think that I need to do something. This cannot continue, the marks cannot be going downward. So I decided that I needed to work on my answer writing, because my scores were also not good in the test series that I gave for PSIR. So I joined the crash course and test series here only. So the scores were also not good. So I decided to improve on my scores by changing the structures of my answers. That was one thing. And the other thing was, I decided that I needed to do value addition in my content for PSIR. So I had made my notes after reading ma'am's books, and then in that I did value addition after watching some videos on the YouTube, or mainly Utkarsh Dwivedi sir's blog on Evernote. I think he has his blog. So from those 2 places I did value addition. Like Utkarsh Dwivedi sir has given introduction, conclusion, good quotes on every topic. I incorporated them in my notes, and then I made one, those notes got a little bit more bulky because they were already bulky, but I tried to revise them 2 or 3 times, and then I made micro notes, very short notes for IR section and IGP section, so that I can revise them in those 5 days, because those 5 days are very crucial. After your GS papers are over and your optional paper, you get 5 days gap. Like the GS4 paper ends on Sunday evening, and then you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday off. On Friday, yes, even Friday off. On Saturday you have your languages paper, compulsory languages too, and on Sunday you have, basically you get 1 week. So in that 1 week you need to revise the whole PSIR syllabus once or twice. For that you need micro notes, because if you refer only the bulky notes, that they will be like this much. You cannot read this much in 1 week. So for that you need to make micro notes, which I made in between prelims and mains. So that is how I went through my optional, and that was the way I made my notes, the sources that I referred to, and that was about optional. After that, there are certain tweaks that I made in my structures of PSIR answers. I tried to establish, see, all these are what I'm going to say. Many toppers say that, but it is difficult to implement, and you can implement it only with practice. Like trying to link whatever is asked in the question with current affairs, trying to establish interlinkages. Say if the question is on John Rawls, then you can link it to Plato even, because both have worked on theory of justice, then how these are different. So like that, establishing interlinkages and connecting the question that has been asked with current affairs. For example, if the question is on Hobbes, then how the current international order reflects Hobbesian state of nature. So like that, establishing interlinkages, connecting with the current, and then criticism, and then counter criticism. These are the things that I tried to incorporate in my answers. But these things take a lot of practice. You need to write a lot of tests or do daily answer writing in your home, so that these aspects can be incorporated into your answer. So that was basically about PSIR. I explained how I made my notes, and also how I did my answer writing and tweaked it in my final attempt, because my score I think improved by more than 50 marks in one attempt. So I think these were the 2 basic things that were responsible for that increase. One was answer writing and one was value addition in my notes. So that was about PSIR. And I think I need to discuss one more thing, and that is note making for mains. For what I did was I made note making based on the syllabus points. For example, in GS1 you have around 20 points, GS2 20 points, GS3 20 points. For every point I made 3 to 4 pages of notes, and I made those notes after referring to the previous year questions, so that I have a basic idea of what kind of question UPSC is asking. After getting an idea of the kind of question being asked from one particular point of the syllabus, say if that point is cyber security, it is there in GS3, right, in the security portion. So if for cyber security, I would see previous year questions, like there is a question on cyber dome, or there is a question on new cyber security policy. That would give me a basic idea about, okay, these are the kind of questions being asked on cyber security. After getting that idea, I would do Google search cyber security space UPSC. It will open up a few websites, and I would refer to them selectively and make 3-4 pages of notes. In those 3-4 pages of notes, I used to follow basic format. Like firstly, if I am making notes on cyber security, I would write 2-3 stats on cyber security, like what is India's ranking in some cyber security index, or how much loss India's IT sector is taking due to cyber security. Like that, I would write 2-3 statistics on cyber security. Then I would discuss some issues. What are the general issues in cyber security? That would be, say, 1 page. 1 page of issues on cyber security. 1 page of government schemes and efforts already taken on cyber security. And then 1 page of way forward, like what more can be done to improve cyber security environment in India. So like that, you have covered cyber security in 3 pages. So that was my basic approach to make notes for mains. Like that, I made notes for every point of the syllabus. So that is around 60 points if you exclude ethics. And for 60 points, I had 200 pages, 250 pages of notes. So that comes in handy when you have limited time between prelims and mains to revise. Revising 250 pages is not a big deal. You can do it easily, means. So that was my approach to note making in between prelims and for mains, which came in handy between prelims and mains. So that was about all from my side. Now, if any of you have anything that you want to ask, you can ask. Yes.
कुछ क्वेश्चंस जैसे सारे डाउट्स क्लियर हो गए, ये पहले से ही क्लियर थे?
Yes.
I have already given 3 presents.
Okay.
The first one was not very good.
Serious.
I did really bad in that because I was not prepared. The second attempt and the third attempt I gave in 2020. This year
Yes.
I didn't attempt. And in 2022, the change in the question pattern, the pairs, 1 pair, 2 pair.
Yes.
The elimination techniques didn't work, and that instilled a fear in me.
Yes.
So how did you manage to overcome your lack of confidence from failing 2-3 times? How did you manage the stress?
So see, there is no way that I know. If you fail once, you get that fear. When I failed first time in prelims, I had no idea how I would pass prelims, and I was so scared that I did not even study for mains in my second attempt, which is the main reason I failed in mains in my second attempt, because I was so obsessed with prelims. I could only think about prelims, but there is no way to overcome that fear but to pass that exam. And how to pass that exam without overcoming the fear is what you need to figure out. And the best way is to not focus on the result. Just try to improve your performance. Try to see what were your shortcomings. Why, say for example, if you are not able to clear prelims, then do a section wise analysis of the paper that you attempted. That okay, these were this many questions. Say there were 20 questions of polity. I did 10 right. I did not attempt 3. I did 7 wrong. And then you say, why did you do those 7 wrongs? Have you not read about those concepts, or you read but you forgot because you did not revise? So like that, you need to reflect on your performance. And after doing such objective reflection, that is the best way, in my opinion, to make improvements. because if you keep fearing just about prelims, and then it will not help so much, because it will create more fear. So the best way to overcome it is to do scientific analysis and think objectively.
PSIR subject with GS subject. GS paper very overlapping.
Yes, there is significant overlap between PSIR and especially GS2, but also ethics and essay paper. So for say I would talk about IR. There is IR in paper 2, especially section B, and that is exactly the last 5 points of GS2 syllabus, right? So what I did was I did not make any separate notes for the last 5 points of the GS2 paper. I relied entirely on my optional notes, but that will not help exactly because the pattern of answer writing is different. In optional, you are writing IR in paragraph format, right? And you are trying to incorporate more scholarly opinions in your answer. But when you are writing that IR question in GS2, then you need to write it in multi-dimensional way. You need to write it firstly in point format, not in paragraph format. And then you need to write strategic dimension, economic dimension, political dimension, defense dimension, cultural dimension. Rather than mentioning scholars, your means focus area changes, your priorities change in writing answers, but the content remains similar. So that is how you deal with overlap, in my opinion, that your content will remain similar, only your orientation will change, whether it is a GS paper or optional paper. That similarly the same polity is there in GS2 first 10 points and the IGP section. The polity is same. Once you have made notes for it, say SHUBHRA ma'am's notes on IGP are there, and those are means a lot, they will help a lot in GS2 as well. So you don't need to make a separate notes for a lot of points. Say ULB is covered in IGP notes, right? And judicial activism is covered in IGP notes. Then you don't need to make separate notes for them for GS2. But what you need to do is that you need to change your orientation while writing answers. While writing answers for optional, your focus should be different. It should be on paragraph format, on scholarly opinions, and on analysis. But in GS2, it needs to be simply to present the facts and figures, like when the amendment took place or Supreme Court's views. It should not focus on scholarly opinions. So like that, you need to tweak the orientation, but that can be done while the content remains same. So that is yes. Engineering. So my interview was in Chaube sir's board, and Chaube sir does not ask any question from DAF. So no question was asked from my engineering background in the real UPSC interview. But it is not like that for everyone, because other boards, they ask about your engineering background, means your background, educational background. And if you say about engineering background, you can make it one of your strength if you have a command over it. Like if you are really well versed with the concepts, then they will ask one or two questions, and if you keep answering them, they will keep on asking more and more, and your interview, you can take it in that direction if that is your strength. But say like me, you are not very well versed or revised with the concepts of engineering, and still they start to ask questions about engineering. Firstly, they will not ask very detailed questions, only basic questions. But if you do not know the answer to even those, then you can simply say that, sorry sir, I do not remember these concepts as I read them a long time back, and they will move on. They will start asking questions from other areas. So it depends on how much you have read about engineering. That is. Yes.
So I have started reading newspapers since the last 8 months since. But by the time I started reading, I was quite naive, and I never knew that I will be vulnerable to develop any political biases. So how can I negate that political as I go on reading newspaper all the time? my orientation changed and my objectivity got compromised. So
Yes.
how do I do it?
So, see, there are two things. First thing is try to minimize the number of political news you are reading, like about political developments. What some politician said in some rally is not very relevant for the syllabus. Read only what is says what the Supreme Court said or what were the official actions taken, and try to minimize the number of articles you are reading about politicians and what they are saying or what they are doing. Means not in an official capacity, like if prime minister is doing something, some minister, finance minister is doing something, that is relevant. But if they are campaigning politically, then that is not very relevant. And that is first thing, that is you should try to minimize reading those articles which talk about political biases, basically allegations and counter allegations. You should try to read them less and less. And second thing is, even if you have a political bias, everyone has a political bias, nobody is neutral. That should not reflect in your answers. And that is all. Means you are, as a civil servant also, neutrality is one of the values which is cherished, but they do not say that you should be neutral in your thought process, because everyone has an opinion. But that should not reflect in your answers, and as a civil servant, it should not reflect in your actions. You can have political opinion, but that should not reflect firstly in your answers and later on in your career, in your actions. Yes.
How do we manage to read and boarding subjects and stress?
So that can be done only with discipline. Means if you find something to be boring, but it needs to be done, then you just sit, you keep the phone aside, and you look at the clock and say, for the next 4 hours, I am not getting up and I am going to read only this. However boring it might be, I will not get up, I will not do anything else, I will just read this. Then maybe because it is boring, instead of reading say 40 pages in the next 4 hours, you will read only 20 pages. But even that is good. It is better than doing nothing or means neglecting that portion. So that is how you can deal with it.
Also, I'll share this PPT with you. When you find that boring, just go through these photos that I showed you, right? ये वाले next. See this one. So you feel that the road to this place goes through that boring route. Then maybe you will feel much more encouraged. Yes, any question?
Sir, have you followed any book for IR?
For IR, no, I did not refer to any book, only means SHUBHRA ma'am's notes, and they give you a background and development still whenever that class was taking place. After that, I referred to the newspapers and their editorials, and I used to add the current events in my static notes. Apart from that, say if there is an issue, I think for example there is Indo-Pacific, and a lot of it is not discussed in the notes, a lot of it is not coming in the newspaper, but I want some scholarly opinions, then and only then I would look at ORF website. ORF website is good, it has a lot of scholarly opinions from Indian as well as Western scholars on the current issues, so you can refer to it selectively and add it into your notes. So that was my source list for IR.
So, the 2023, this year was my third attempt.
Okay.
My first attempt 2021, I wrote mains.
Okay.
And since I started preparing for mains after prelims, I couldn't clear mains by
Okay.
marks.
Okay.
So now, sir, after this year paper, like he mentioned, there was kind of a fear that is instilled
Yes.
in me, and
Yes.
kind of hope has been shattered, the belief system.
Yes.
So I'm kind of thinking to take a break from preparation
And do
come
what?
back later.
Means
So,
you have any job or some
No, I
backup?
quit my job 3 years back.
Okay, so you are thinking about means going back to your job or just taking a break to study?
Kind of I'm thinking for plan B, like getting into corporate.
Okay, okay.
So I wanted to ask, like, what made you go for the fourth attempt after you couldn't clear mains in the third attempt?
See, basically it was a leap of faith. I did not know, means even I said to my parents that I cannot do it. I don't know where I am falling short. That is the basic thing. If you know that you can do this and you will pass, then it is not an issue. You need to just work on it. But when I failed in my second attempt, I did not know where I am going wrong. So I wanted to quit. I had, as I said, I had a job in state PSC, and I thought that I will do just this. I'm not made for UPSC, and I had accepted it also. But then my parents also pushed me, my friends also pushed me. They said, you have given 3 years, 4 years already, give 1 or 2 more. What means, what do you have to lose? So I thought about it in that sense, and then I gave it again. And even this time, my mains, after writing my mains, I thought that it was worse than I wrote last time, and I was not expecting an interview call this time. But this time I got a rank, so sometimes it is just a leap of faith.
Exactly, I'm going through the same thought process. Just that I don't have any backup to follow.
No, so that is means an issue, but see, that decision has to be made by you, whether you want to take a break or not. It depends on your personal, your family background, your financial position. Means it depends on a lot of factors. But all I can say is that in UPSC you never know when it is your turn. If you have achieved a certain level, then it does not depend. If you have already cleared 3 months, then I think you can clear it again.
So this preparation was good. I was thinking I was hoping that I could clear this, but
Yes.
the issue was the GS was issue. Also the CSAT. In my first attempt, I scored 120, and the PYQs when I scored when I was practicing them, all of the scores were above 100. So and this year I may be failing in CSAT.
Yes, so practice more for CSAT, because CSAT is becoming difficult, more and more difficult every year. You need to do test series. If you are not getting good score in test series, maybe think about joining a crash course or something, buying some book. Means even I don't know, because I have never studied for CSAT and barely managed to pass it in 2022. But you need to do something, and the main thing is you need to practice more, because CSAT is all about practice. It will not come by reading or revising. It will come only by practicing. So that is it.
So I'll just add to what Anirudh said, that it at some point of time it is leap of faith, right? I will just give 2 more examples, because if you see in this particular UPSC ecosystem, you get various kind of examples. The first thing is that you have to ask yourself, do you want to continue? And second, if yes, then you have to follow those examples which is suiting you. For example, in your case, I will quote 2 of our students. This year rank 175, Natasha Goel. 4 attempts, prelims not cleared. She had come to quit the preparation. Okay, and see, if you are not clearing prelims in 4 attempts, your confidence would be in minus, right? And that also girl from a Punjabi conservative family. So in our society, the pressure on girls is more than boys. The marriage pressure, She had come to quit the preparation. This was her 5th attempt, and it worked. 175 rank. This year on 28 May, it was prelims, and her dad had told, "Ki bahut ho gaya Bhagapana. Now I'm coming and I'll get you back home." Luckily, before prelims, I think, when did the result come? 21st?
Yes, 23rd. 23rd.
Results came, and now 175 should be landing up in IRS or IPS. Okay. Another example, 3 years back, Pooja Rana from Pune, 4 attempts, no prelims. 5th attempt, 257 rank. Currently, she is posted at Assistant Commissioner, Income Tax, Delhi. So why I'm telling you this example is, first you have to decide that do you still enjoy reading for this UPSC. If you want, then it can work out for you. Again, it can. Okay, nothing is sure. I give the example of rank 10, Harkirat Singh Gandhava, last year, 6th attempt. And he was a graduate of St. Stephen's College. St. Stephen's College, Delhi University, it's the best college in India. So 10th attempt. So now the whole process is, he must be realizing it now, that once you are getting selected, then all your past sins, they are flushed out in one go. Okay? So the same confidence which was in minus, that will become 100%. The same society which was criticizing you till now for doing nothing will start giving you an example. If you are like a silent person, not talking to anybody, for example, Anirudh, I find him is a very silent guy. So, if not selected, society will say he is such a silent, dumb fellow. How will he get selected in UPSC? वहाँ पे तो extrovert लोगों का selection होता है. If he gets selected, then society will say साइलेंट होके पढ़ाई करता था हमेशा, किसी से न कोई दोस्त न कोई साथी, जो है सो हमेशा पढ़ाई में लगा रहता था. जो पढ़ाई में लगा रहेगा उसका कहाँ कोई दोस्त साथी होगा. सो सक्सेस हैज मेनी फादर्स एंड फेलियर इज बट एन ऑल. So you decide which way you want to go back to corporate. You can go.
It's like I don't like that. It's like as if I feel I'm forced to be there because.
तो फिर ट्राई करो. The thing is कि if you are again failing, जैसे 4 अटेम्प्ट फेलियर हुआ उसमें 5 अटेम्प्ट का फेलियर हो जाएगा. But if you get selected, then ask him that how things have changed. ठीक है. There was another student IPS from Rajasthan. When he used to stay in Bhubaneswar, Delhi, 4 attempts नहीं हुआ. When he used to go home, तो वो ऐसे टाइम पे ट्रेन से या बस से उतरता था जहाँ पे शाम में कोई बाहर दिखे ना, क्योंकि वो घर चला जाए. तो लोग दिखेंगे क्या कर रहे हो क्या कर रहे हो. सिलेक्शन के बाद गया तो लोग घोड़ा और बागा लेके खड़े थे स्टेशन पे और वो ड्रम्स ढोल वगैरह करके. तो ऑल दैट इज सेकेंडरी. इफ यू वांट टू प्रिपेयर, गो फॉर अनदर अटेम्प्ट. The maximum loss would be that 1 more year, but gain can be significant. You know that, okay? And just आपको decide करना है. Okay, but it is a leap of faith. As I said, this time it worked out for him. His marks came down from 260 to 243.
Yes.
Then went up to 295. Now, what was logic behind that? Did he study less? There was another selected student, selected as IRS. And again he was giving it for improvement of rank. So when he was selected in IRS, he had 192 in interview, and as an IRS, when he gave the interview when he was giving the subsequent attempt, he got some 154 or something. So can we conclude that IRS training brought his personality down? No. So things are very subjective here. So you have to take that. It is your decision, because benefit you will gain. If it is a deal of loss, you are going to feel the burden.
So, which paper
See, for me, it was always paper 1, but for most other people, for most other toppers, it is paper 2. For example, this year also, I had 149, I think, in paper 1 and 146 in paper 2. And before that, in my past 2 attempts, I had 136 and 138 in paper 1. So because it is static, paper 1 is more static. So it means that was my strength. But it can again vary from people to people. This year, I think Ishita Kishore ma'am has 166 in paper 2.
My batchmate hai. Ishita ma'am.
So it is like that.
Ishita Kishore also first 2 prelims she did not clear. तो लोगों का ये इंटरप्रिटेशन होगा कि जब प्रीलिम्स ही नहीं निकल रहा है तो मेंस और इंटरव्यू तक गया. एंड इन द थर्ड अटेम्प्ट शी गॉट selected also, rank 1 also. So you will have lot of, if there are 900 people who are selected, it is 900 stories that you will get. So probably she would have also thought of going back to her corporate job or whatever, because prelims का ही नहीं काम करना. Mains देने के बाद लोगों को लगता है कि कम से कम मेंस तो दिया है, राइट. प्रीलिम्स नॉट वर्किंग. सो द थिंग इज थर्ड अटेम्प्ट में ये लगता होगा कि चलो कम से कम इस बार तो ये में प्रीलिम्स ही निकल जाए. बट एवरीथिंग वर्कड, एंड दैट आल्सो विद एक्सेप्शनल रैंक. आई थिंक यू हैव कंप्लीटेड हिज आंसर.
Yes.
आप probably
field services examinations help you like in the like value addition or
It only, in my case, it only gave me mental peace that I have something to fall back to, because syllabus is not 100% similar. It is 80% similar in case of UPPSC. I don't know about Odisha PSC.
here they have syllabus is different, but pattern is
Yes, similar.
same. Similar. That's why I told you कि you have to give
Both.
Odisha public service commission. Because and this is something that he also suggested to Mumbai students also, and I also suggest. You cannot rely upon one examination wherein you can break any time. ठीक है, and even if you are breaking, मान लो इनका 23 मई को रिजल्ट आया, नहीं हो रहा था, तो he would have been giving prelims on 28th of May. So the thing is, it's such a fragile process. So at least 2 exams you have to give. One state PSC and other is UPSC. And state PSC is also better than the best job. Okay, it is like giving you opportunity of administration at state level. Of course, there are difference in promotion aspects and all, but you cannot say that it is a bad job as such. There are many people who are just preparing for that, and it is very good job. So in my suggestion, you should try for both. And now that you have similar pattern, there is no reason why you should just focus on only UPSC. That is too dangerous, I would say.
After the second mains and between third mains, what changes you brought to the answer writing? What areas you focus, like giving more tests or just analyzing the previous answers?
The truth really is that there was no significant change that I made. It was simply more gradual changes, like your knowledge increases gradually, the number of revisions increase gradually, presentation improved gradually, and it all added up in my third mains. So that made significant impact in my marks. And 50 marks I improved only in PSIR. Apart from that, I improved only 30-40 marks in all my 6 papers combined, 5 papers combined. So in PSIR, as I said, I tried to change my answer writing structure and tried to do value addition in my content. So it was gradual changes, no significant change I made either in my answer writing, or especially of GS or for essay. It was just adding up what was building up from the last 2 mains.
Okay, so I think we have covered every aspect quite comprehensively in the question.
So the test series you wrote, were the open book
No, they were time constrained in 3 hours. I did not go beyond 3 hours 5 minutes ever, because if you practice to write it in 3 hours 15 or 20 minutes, you will not be able to complete it in 3 hours in the actual mains. So in my suggestion, you should practice tests in a time bound manner.
Like even if we don't feel that confident for the particular part of the
Yes, and still write it in a time bound manner. And firstly, try to not write it if you are not comfortable with that portion of the syllabus. First read that portion and then give the tests. But whenever you give the tests, write them in a time constrained manner.
So another one, like any particular example of one keyword of
Of PSIR or say, for example, if in PSIR I had made notes on, say, India-Pakistan ties. Then on India-Pakistan ties, when I make notes, it was covered firstly in half page. In that, the first line would be introduction. And in introduction, I would write, say, I think it was said by Shashi Tharoor that Pakistan is the most pressing challenge of India's foreign policy. That would be my introduction. So that is one line, introduction, and then 4-5 lines of issues explained through various scholars. Say, what is the view of Stephen P. Cohen or some others, I'm forgetting the names now, Nirupama Rao and other scholars. And yes, so that is basically the framework. You write the introduction, 1 page, then 4-5 pages scholarly opinions in 1 line, just 1 line on issues in India-Pak ties, and then 3-4 suggestions in 1 line of scholars on the way forward for India-Pak ties, and then some statistics sprinkled, like what is the status, means what is the trade, what it used to be, and SAARC, BIMSTEC, how, means interconnection, some issues like Sir Creek or Siachen or whatever LOC is there. So some issues like that and some way forward. So in half a page you have intro, conclusion, issues and way forward. And one line of issues, one line of way forward. Like that, if you make micro notes, you can make cover India Pak ties in just half a page. I have a Telegram channel. I will share my notes, micro notes.
Because exactly I was following Utkarsh sir's to make all.
Yes.
But then I thought like if I go for micronotes for quick revision between the
Yes.
Two papers, that
Yes.
GS and optional. So how to again shorten it so that it gets revised.
Yes, you should shorten them like that. Means try to make micro notes which cover issues way forward, introduction and conclusion in half a page for one topic. India Pak ties, India USA ties, India Russia ties. You can cover them in 0.5 pages each.
Did you to address a mistake during the preparation?
Means the mistakes that I made. See, to address the mistakes, what you need to do is firstly identify where you are making mistakes, what kind of mistakes you are making.